We are catching up with DICE here in an eerily quiet EA corner of Gamescom 2016 to learn more about Battlefield 1. And I think you sort of cheated a little bit. Started out yesterday with a great new trailer coming out, showcasing what people can get to play. Not very long from now. I mean, you get to play it now if you're here at Gamescom, but very soon people get to play Design Director. What's the significance for you as a developer to bring a beta out to a sort of a wider audience at this point?
I think for me as developer, or for us as a team, a big part is it's kind of the final confirmation of are we doing things right. As always, we work super hard internally to try it out on people, first internally within the team, within the studio, within EA. We bring in external audiences silently to validate that we're on the right track and the concept is right. And especially for this game, it's been a lot of hush-hush since we went from the modern warfare, where most people were, into an era that was we hadn't really seen on the market. And with that, we wanted to keep it kind of super silent. But in that, I think we've been able to kind of prove the concept. And most recently now, we had a closed alpha to see how it turns out. We're here letting people play the game today. And very soon here on the 31st of August, we'll open up the open beta for the masses, for everyone.
You mentioned that, and I think that's something that you have to hang on to, because I don't think you can get to talk to someone who's got more experience in Battlefield than yourself. So it's interesting to hear, like, when was the sort of the first seed of maybe we could do World War I? When was that born, and sort of what's the journey been like with that idea?
I think, I try to ask myself the question since, as my aging brain thinks, it's probably somewhere around 2008, 2009, where two guys, Martin Kopparhed and Stefan Strandberg, came to me and said, this is really something we should do, and showed me movies and a lot of things. But at that, during the years, we've been fortunate at DICE with Battlefield, with Mirror's Edge and so on, that it's always been quite busy, and there's always been a new plan in place. But after Battlefield 4, we really saw that it's time for something new, both to challenge kind of what Battlefield can be, but also for ourselves as developers and the community. But it's always good with a challenge and try something new. And we started to look for what, to be honest, we didn't even look for what era to start with, but where can we kind of challenge ourselves in terms of gameplay. And this is where those old thoughts came back, and kind of it was there ready for being discovered, and so we did, and the crew back at work did really good job in presenting it from a good perspective, that we also, this is something we can build upon. And I think as we step back, it is really the dawn of all-out war. And if we look at Battlefield, it's always been the big sandbox. From Battlefield 1942, it's been a big sandbox. It's about the hardware, the soldiers, and now with Battlefield 1, it is really the origin of everything we've done ever after. So that's where the name comes in, and for us, it's a nice kind of coming back to, oh, this is where that weapon originated from. Here you can see a birth of the tanks, the planes, and so on. So just in a few years, the diversity and in the amount of hardware and what came about to solve different problems is it's the most technologically divergent era or war of all through mankind. So it's super interesting for us as developers to dive into this and realize that there's so much more than we thought from the beginning. There's a lot of preconceptions, I think, and people think about trench warfare. And when we started to look further, it's almost that we had to hold ourselves back, since, no, they won't believe they did that. That seems too steampunk, or no, that's too crazy, we can't do that. So for us as developers, I think it's been a very joyful period of discovering, and hopefully the players out there will have the same feeling of it's not the same weapons I have in every game. There's a lot of new stuff to discover.
Okay, because I think trench warfare, you touched on something that might be one concern. Another concern would be it's going to be a reskin Battlefield 4, but you sort of, I think you sort of with the first trailer already there, you showed people that it's neither of those. It's something quite unique, quite different, while still being Battlefield, which is kind of hard to wrap your head around until you play it.
Yeah, it feels good to hear that, since we've been working hard to first off making sure that it is a Battlefield game. Since we're going into a different era, can we do it there? That was kind of the first tick box. Once we managed to see that yes, this holds up, how can we make the most out of this era? And from that, I mean, building on the pillars of Battlefield with destruction, with team play, with all-out war, the vehicles, just looking at all the different areas and see how do we best make this fit together as a package. And I think it starts with the small details, like the crew and the core gameplay group have worked with how the weapons feel, how very often by hitting the deck you can survive an incoming artillery strike or grenades. When you fire, you come rolling on the ground to survive. There's a lot of small details that make the game differentiate from the previous games. From those small things up to then the dynamic world. How do we take this concept further? And here, I mean, we wanted to make the destruction more consistent, more readable and accessible, including working more with the terrain destruction, degradation, and up to the big things of the weather changing and being unpredictable, but both creating new experiences, but also for me personally as a designer, providing more tools in your toolbox, since many shooters have weapons, gadgets and soldiers. But Battlefield has always been weapons, gadgets, soldiers and vehicles. But then we brought in destruction. If you play with destruction in mind, that can become a tool in your toolbox. And now with the weather, you know, weather changes, it's dense fog. How do I adapt to that to overcome and actually use it as a benefit for me? So hopefully this sandbox has just grown and grown, so that, I mean, the mantra we had all the way through is no battle is ever the same. And I think being a long-timer in Battlefield, me personally, I feel that that's one of the strengths of Battlefield, and I feel that with these additions, we just keep on taking it even further.
It is interesting. I also think that one thing that struck me, and that we're now seeing sort of the full scope of the train, the behemoths, the big deals. What do you feel it is that brings to the table as well? And why is that something that you wanted to add to that formula?
I mean, for me, coming here to Gamescom and showing off Sinai Desert with it's the changing weather, with the pinnacle of the sandstorm, creating new types of gameplay. It is the elite classes, and there are highly specialized troops that you can then find on the battlefield to pick up and go into very different experience in terms of the flame trooper with its pros and cons, highly kind of fire resistant gear, but yeah, the only way really to take him out is to come around. So strength and weaknesses. The armored guy you've seen in the movies with the sentry, who's basically a medieval knight with his heavy Maxim gun in there, makes it, I mean, he had to give up his gas mask. So all of them have their pros and cons. Tank hunter hiding somewhere in the shadows with its man-sized rifle to go hunt vehicles. So that adds a new flavor and new gameplay experiences. The armored train, which you've seen in movies for, like the airship which turned up on San Quentin Scar. And the key thing here is both the horse, the elite classes, and the behemoths. To us, they represent some of the most iconic things we could find within this era. And for us, going back to our discussion around trenches, we wanted, of course, to have trench warfare in there, since that's kind of a tick box we need to deliver, and we wanted to. But there's so much more, and it's these unknown things, these unknown battles, unknown stories that we want to tell. And there, I mean, what people will see here today or tomorrow and the days to come when they play the game is really these behemoths where the train comes in. It's 4 to 6 players, it's player driven, of course, it's Battlefield. That hopefully can change the tide of the battle. We bring it in when one team is clearly falling behind in operations or in conquest. And then to help you turn the tide of the battle, being a Iron Horse, a steel beast with lots of different gun mounts to not only do the close combat but long distance fighting. And in the end, would you manage to defeat it and outsmart it, it should go with a bang, just like the airship, which is totally kind of unpredicted from our place where it will be and what effect it will have. But that's, once again, that's the beauty of Battlefield.
It is an interesting take because, with Battlefield 4 you had the Levolution thing, Star Wars Battlefront, you also had the big vehicles, but sort of a different progression to it. It sort of feels like you're tilting the multiplayer, you're testing a few different things every time you go at it.
Yeah, we do, and also listening sincerely to the community, where what did they like about destruction in Battlefield 4? There were a lot of influencers who talked about, we love the destruction in Bad Company too, and they liked the interactive parts of Levolution and so on in Battlefield 4. So we looked at kind of what are the key pieces. We wanted to improve the destruction, we wanted the interactivity, and then rather have the behemoths be the pinnacle of epic events that happen. And I think for me as a gamer, and I hope that will come through when people play it, and it's been positive so far, is that it's a much more consistent and destructive Battlefield. And at times we even had to reel it back since there was no covers left to be had. Well, that's a nice place to be.
That is also an interesting scenario to sort of blow up the entire map. We've talked about almost exclusively about multiplayer, but of course it sort of touches on the single player as well, because from a gameplay perspective, that's the experience you want players to have in single player as well, right?
Yeah, a lot of the things I've been talking about are the era, the beauty, and what we found is that this time where the old world really met the new one, where before that it was truly, think Napoleon armies, it was colorful uniforms, it was horses, it was marching troops, it was melee combat with clubs and so on. That was a world that in just a few years went from, was it 1 year in or so, where planes really became a factor in the war. And imagine being a farmer on the fields. You might not even seen a bicycle yet in your life, and suddenly comes tanks, there come planes, airships, armored trains. It's hard to believe what an impact this war had on the world, and that for us as developers, when we've been digging deeper, all the things that it's changed. 4 empires fell, there were kind of drastic changes to the world. Ladies, females went into starting to work, which was not real. They went into the factories to support the war. There's so many changes that happened based on this war that we found out as developers, which is it's been interesting times, and I think it's been kind of a project of passion in many ways, this game, and hopefully that shines through when people play it.
And speaking of that, the beta is coming up very soon, and you've also got the release date nailed down, but just to iterate on it, what dates should people look out for, what platforms?
First and foremost, now 31st of August, the open beta will be open for anyone, which means on PC, Xbox One and PlayStation 4. And if you want early access to it, you can go in on battlefield.com and sign up as a Battlefield insider. Remember to tick the little box to get, so you get the code, but then you get into the early access, but do that before the 21st of August. And then when it comes to when we'll hit the market, it's the 21st of October, and that the game will be coming out, so it's exciting times. Ahead of that, if you buy the early enlister deluxe edition, you get access already on the 18th of October. And would you be part of EA access or Origin access, you get to start already or try it out already on the 13th of October. Lots of dates, but exciting times, and it is on PlayStation 4, Xbox One and PC.
All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Pleasure.